Jai Hind! Namaste! Welcome to Galp Taru, the Tree of Stories, which is a celebration of Indian folk tales. My name is Ambalika and I am an author and storyteller, and Galp Taru is my special storytelling initiative on the occasion of the 75th year of Indian independence. The beauty of this Amrit Mahotsav is that very gently, very subtly, it has led us into the Amrit Kaal, which is the period of next 25 years leading to the year 2047, by when India would have completed 100 years of being an independent country. And our goal in the next 25 years is to help our country become the Vishwa Guru that she has always been known for. And how are we going to do that? Of course, economic superpower is the number one thing that comes to everybody's mind. But no matter what kind of a superpower you become in what aspect, the foundation of that power is going to come from the values that you stand for, the values that you embody. And India has always championed this since time immemorial. And through Galp Taru, that's exactly what we are trying to do, because values of a country, of a civilization, lies in its folk culture. It lies in the stories told by its indigenous people. And in Galp Taru, it is my endeavor to bring to you the various facets covered by the folk tales of India. No matter what the region be, no matter what the language be, the values remain universal. So, are you ready to join me for yet another episode? You're most welcome. Till now in Galp Taru, we have been covering the major languages, meaning languages that have a state to identify with. For example, if I say Malayalam, you know that that's the language of the state of Kerala. And if I'm talking about a folk tale from Maharashtra, you know it's Marathi. If I say Orissa, you know it's Oriya. But in today's episode, we're going to look at a language that has no land. Well, at least it doesn't have a land in India, because the entire land that it originally hailed from, that the language evolved from, went to our neighboring country during 1947. Yes, you've guessed it right. I'm talking about the language Sindhi. Sindhi has its origin cloaked in a lot of mysterious theories. One says that it evolved in the traditional way like the other Indo-Aryan languages, which is like Sanskrit, Prakrit, and then Apapramsh, and from there it branched out. And there is yet another branch of belief of the researchers that it's actually a Dravidian language with its origin in the Mohenjo-daro civilization. Well, we will leave it to the researchers to come up with what is the origin. But no matter what, Sindhi is a beautiful language, and very surprisingly, its glorious period is believed to be during the colonial times. It is surprising, but it's refreshingly different too. And in the course of this episode, we will see how. In 1843, the Bombay Army of the East India Company, under the command of Charles Napier, had fought against the Talpur armies of Sindh. Defeating the Baluch army, Sindh was annexed and it became a part of the Bombay Presidency. Upon the annexation, normally it has been found that regions that get annexed by the East India Company or the British government later on, they have a very difficult time maintaining their languages, and there's a lot of unrest amongst the public. But in the case of the Sindh annexation, it was a most welcome step from the point of view of the Sindhi language's development. You see, the East India Company officials wanted to directly rule over the people, and they figured out that the best way of doing this was by having good relations with the traders and merchants. This meant they needed to know the Sindhi language. And so they made it mandatory for all of their officers to become well versed in this language. And if not, they were not going to get paid their salary or enjoy any of their official benefits. Strange, right? But also quite motivating. And so it was that in 1848, the governor, Sir George Clerk, issued a circular that Sindhi was going to be the official language of the province and also the language for education. And later on in 1857, the Commissioner, Sir Bartle Frere, made it mandatory for all the civil servants posted to the Sindh region to clear an examination in Sindhi language to be eligible for their postings. And because of this, the government itself came up with courses of 4 to 6 months in the Sindhi language to help its officials become proficient in this language. And civil servants who were not able to clear this obviously did not draw their salaries, and there is evidence in the form of a letter written by an employee to his superior that since he has not cleared the examination because he could not study that language due to some reason, so he had not been drawing his salary, but now he has recently cleared that examination and so would like his salary restarted. Quite fascinating. Well, it gets even more interesting from here on, but quickly let's take a recap into the Sindhi language's not contribution, the contributions made to the Sindhi language from a literature's point of view. The earliest known contributions made to the Sindhi language was between the 10th and 16th century, which is regarded as the early period of this language development. And the major contribution found during this time period is the initiation of the translation of the Quran. During the medieval period, which is between the 16th and the 19th century, the contributions made were under the influence of Sufism and Advaita Vedanta. And the treasure trove of folk tales were adapted and readapted into verse by the bards of that time, and it gave rise to a lot of wonderful romantic ballads, and some of these are Leland Chanisar and Soni Mahiwal. The modern period for Sindhi literature or the language came about upon its annexation by the East India Company, and as is expected, the officials, the colonial officials, wanted to learn the language better because they wanted to govern better, and so most of the contributions from their side has been on understanding the technicalities of the language. So major linguistic influences, the linguists who influenced during this period happened to be Sir George Abraham Grayson, Sir George Sherd, Sir George Stack, and Dr. Ernest Trump. There's a lot of Sirs and Georges coming in here. And as expected, their contributions have been towards developing dictionaries and also books on grammar. So a significant number of English to Sindhi dictionaries were composed, and the most notable of the grammar books is the one produced by Sir George Sherd, and it's titled Galp Taru. Dr. Ernest Trump had a special contribution over here, unlike his contemporaries. You see, he was a German professor teaching Oriental languages in the University of Munich, and he was also a Christian missionary, and he was posted to the Sindh region because of missionary activities, at least because of those intentions that he was sent. So he was looking at the language, he was looking to make some contribution from a religion or from a spirituality point of view. And as a result, he ended up translating a significant portion of the Guru Granth Sahib from its native language to English, but unfortunately, because his grasp on the language was not extensive, the translated version ended up having a lot of discrepancies, and so it was not widely accepted. Fun fact, the Sindhi typewriter was developed during this period. It was called Monarch and was developed by the American company Remington. It now rests happily in the Museum of Sindhology in Jamshoro, a city in Sindh, Pakistan. Another major development to the Sindhi language during the British times was the development of the Sindhi script. They already had a prevalent script called the Chaliha Akhari, but in 1852, the then commissioner wanted something more relevant, and so he constituted a committee of 4 Hindu and 4 Islamic scholars and asked them to come up with something more relevant, and so they did. They came up with a modified Arabic script, and it consisted of 52 alphabets, with sounds taken from the Arabic, Persian, Sanskrit languages and also certain sounds unique to the Sindhi language. Upon independence, the entire region of Sindh went to a neighboring country, and Sindhi speakers who chose to stay back in India were without a state. Without a state, preserving the language, maintaining it was definitely a challenge. And to ensure that younger generations and future generations stayed connected to the language, it was decided to transition from the Arabic script to the Devanagari script. But this was not enough. Sindhi needed to be recognized officially, and so in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution in 1967, it was included as an official language. This was also not enough. They also created the National Council for the Promotion of the Sindhi Language and the Indian Institute of Sindhology, who do commendable work to preserve and promote Sindhi language and literature. In 2017, upon the completion of 50 years of inclusion of the Sindhi language to the Indian Constitution, along with SIDAC Pune, the National Council for Promotion of Sindhi Language developed a software to enable easy learning of the Sindhi language. This, I think, has been the best, brilliant move till date for preservation of a language. So those of us who are keen to understand and learn this language, check it out. And now comes the most interesting part of the episode, the title reveal of the folktale, which is the 8th key. Is it key or is it key? Well, to figure that out, you will have to watch that folktale, and you can do that only when you subscribe to this channel and hit on that bell notification so that when this folktale comes live, you don't miss it. So while I go and prepare for that folktale, you go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you soon. Until then, Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.